Hello, hello. You're tuning into the Careering with Cameron podcast, your safe place to ask all the dumb questions about finding a job. Hey everybody, welcome back. It is Kevin Cameron with Careering with Cameron. Today we're going to talk about something that I feel as though is a hurdle for a lot of folks who are in career transition to figure out how to manage. And so that hurdle is going to be, how do you approach people to let them know you're interested in a position, whether it's a position created or a position that's not been posted? What does that outreach message look like? And what should it say and not say? Stay with us. We're going to walk through several different dynamics of how you should write that letter. So the bottom line is this: 70 to 80% of jobs are never posted on a job board. They're filled through networking. One of the things that I really push hard with my clients that are in outplacement or in a career strategy session is to figure out how to connect with people to find those opportunities in that 70 to 80% to ensure that they're being viewed for those roles and that they're being considered, even more importantly, for those positions. Oftentimes, people don't always know that you're looking for something new. Even if you're posting on LinkedIn, they may not see the post that shows your interest in something else. And furthermore, there's a tendency to be very broad with what you're open to in terms of your next opportunity. And in this case, and in the case of marketing, broad is bad. The broader you are, the harder it is for them to figure out how to connect you. So you want to be specific. The typical challenge spot for most people is the I need a job email versus building a real connection. And more often than not, coming at somebody with the I need a job or please help me email tends to make people shrivel. It becomes something that is a bit of a hot potato. And it's a hot potato because they look at that as, I just received an email from Kevin. He's looking for a job. If I go to the next step with Kevin and have a conversation, there's a very good chance he's going to ask me for a job or if I can get him hired. And I don't know that I have that type of autonomy. And I also don't know that I want to necessarily be the person vouching for him when I just met him. So we've got to figure out, how do you get those connections to start happening from a actual networking perspective? We're going to break down 3 of those actual specific email templates that will get replies and the psychology behind why. Let me know if you've seen this before. You've got 170,000 emails in your email box, and somebody just sent you a message asking for something else. Now, flip the script. You sent the email asking for a job, and you're the 151,001 email that person's received. What that means is, chances are, unless you've got a real reason why they want to talk to you and you want to talk to them, and it's something that they feel strongly about, you're probably getting ghosted. And I'm sure you're already seeing that. So here's the thing. We're not going to go in and ask for a job. We're not going to go in and ask for anything that's going to be a real challenge for them to present you with or to connect you with. We're going to make it easy. We're going to make it so easy that they don't really even have to think about the next step. So we're going to ask for 15 minutes. And essentially in this email, we're asking for 15 minutes, maybe 30, but chances are 15 is the sweet spot. 30 is when it gets to be something that actually shows up as a block on a calendar. 15 does not. We're asking for 15 minutes, and essentially we're looking for a way to break down who, what, why, when, and where test. Okay? How do you pass the 5-second inbox scan? Because let's face it, it's about 5 seconds between looking at Instagram reels, reading jokes, sending messages, reading texts. How many different venues can you have coming at you at one time while you're considering this conversation with somebody who you may have never met before? The bottom line is, you need to make it as easy as possible for the person that you're reaching out to. And making it easy means being very direct about the fact that you're interested in their organization. You've done some research. You understand who they are, what they do, Maybe you want to connect with them specifically, which I highly recommend, because you want to learn more about what it's like to work there. Ideally, they're somebody who has worked for a company you worked for before, and therefore that connection is even stronger because you both understand similar cultures, work cultures, in terms of coming into an organization. That's the crux of this outreach. It is not, can you send my resume to the right person? It is, I want to learn more about this, and I want to learn it from you because we have some similar experiences. Whether that's in the types of roles you've worked in, the organizations you've worked in, the college or university you went to, the high school you went to, whatever that may be, find some common ground so that you can express your thoughts on the organization, or they can, more than likely, on a level that they know there's some common ground with you. Okay. That's the first piece. The next piece is when you start off with Dear Hiring Manager, you should actually probably just set up your email to be automatically directed to a spam or promotional account or whatever that may be. It's so vanilla and so unengaging that the person who's getting that email is thinking to themselves, okay, this is somebody who's putting in the bare minimum amount of time to get to me, to send me a message that they want me to read and then schedule time with them to talk to them. I'm putting a lot more effort into this relationship than they are at this point. So what we're looking for is finding a way to get to a name and being able to reach out to that person via that name. I also want to add, in terms of the psychology of their inbox and how you make it as easy as possible, you want to make sure that your contact information is included in that message. Phone number, maybe your LinkedIn URL, obviously your name, possibly your title or positions that would make sense. So maybe what the title would be in some place that you're applying to. But really you want to make it as easy as possible for them to reach you because you don't know where they're going to read this email. This could be something they're reading on the train on the way home and they want to shoot you a text to set up a time to talk. We're not sure. So make it as easy as possible. Okay. Include the resume with that so they can review it and they have an idea where this is going. Now, first template, the Alumni Connection. So here's the thing. When you go to a high school for some, depending on what part of the country you're in, college, university, you're part of Greek life, there's an inherent connection there of almost family, almost a sibling, right? So typically I tell people when they're getting started with figuring out where should they reach out to people, certainly reaching out to people that they went to school with is very high on the list. The other components that you can reach out to would be people that you've been in groups with while being in those organizations. So high school, college, university, graduate programs, whatever that may be. Even, sometimes people forget this, even in specific training or certification programs that they've taken where they've met some folks that are in different spaces that you can reach out to. They're a great resource to reach out to. So the thing is, when you have, again, that common background where you have some similar experiences, humans want to help people that have common experiences with them. And that feels very easy to them. I'm not saying that we don't want to help people with different experiences, but I'm saying that if they feel as though there's some common ground, you can talk about places on campus from when you were there, ask if they are still there, ask if they had a specific professor. That's an easy way to start a conversation and not feel like it's quite so much work. And also notice, those are things you can include in your connection request to them. Not sure if you had Professor so-and-so, something similar to that, where you can kind of create that bond, start that bond up now, instead of waiting till you're on a call with them. The next piece is using those connections to inform that audience of what you're looking for. And again, being specific about what that is. So if you're looking for a position in talent acquisition that is hybrid and you have a specific part of the country you want to live in, whether you live there now or you want to live there, that's an important piece to lay out early on, and then be able to illustrate to them that your experience from XYZ company makes you a really strong fit for their organization. And so you're looking at organizations that are in that industry. All right. So you're not necessarily saying, I'm only looking at your organization. You're saying, this industry is interesting. You guys are doing some very interesting work. I would love to be part of that conversation. And let's see if there's a spot. The next piece of this is, how do you figure these people out? How do you find them, right? So one of the things that LinkedIn is very good at is being able to keyword search based on filters. So going into LinkedIn and filtering your search for former employees of Talent Connect who might be working someplace else now is a great starting point. You can reach out to people who, and it will show you where they're working, and it'll give you the most popular places that people have left Talent Connect and gone. But reaching out to them to find out, how is it that you have found this new position, and what do you think of it, and what do you think of working there? That's the first piece, is utilizing those filters on LinkedIn to find them. The next piece that you can use obviously would be schools, education, certifications, things like that. Those are all pretty similar in terms of using the filters. But then the other piece that can sometimes help quite a bit would be groups. So looking in LinkedIn for groups of people who maybe are in the talent acquisition industry. Many times that's a great network for employers as well, to be able to share positions that they have that they're working on, knowing their population is accurate for the most part. Now, you're going to see some marketing, you're going to see some spam. That's going to be the case everywhere. But that group may actually pull people in to your network who you wouldn't ordinarily find if you were just searching by company or organization, higher ed, whatever that may be. So keep in mind, you may find groups. Do a search for them, see if you can find them. Also, look at those groups outside of LinkedIn. So you may be able to find things. Facebook has certainly groups. I would think you could also find them in terms of places like Meetup and Reddit and things like that, where you'll find groups where people are talking and you can connect with them and ideally connect and get advice. So the other thing, and I share this because it's hard to realize at different points in your career. So as you're connecting with alums, the advantage is actually yours if you're coming out of school. So this is for our students who are conducting a search. And it's also for people who are just early on in their career. Reaching out to somebody who has achieved things in their lives, in their career, perhaps they are at an executive level, is something that you'll almost always get a response on, because that person can sort of romanticize what it was like for them getting started in their career. And I can tell you, most often, the executive level of an organization is pretty interested in talking about how they've gotten to where they wanted to be, because they're also thinking about what is their next step. What are they going to want to do next? Maybe it's something where they wanted to get into a classroom. Maybe it's something where they want to mentor someone. Those are things that are fun, and they're at a point in their career where they're established enough that they feel as though they would be able to help somebody, and what better place to help them than somebody who went to the same school that they did. So don't limit your outreach to a senior director, a manager. You can shoot much higher than that in terms of the space in the organization, and try to get somebody's attention who is an alumni. And frankly, if they are not interested or they don't have the time, they also may pass you back down to the hiring manager or somebody who could be the hiring manager for a role you would fit. Bottom line is, they know your name, and that's never a bad thing. So make sure that you're not limiting your reach in terms of how far up the ladder you're going when you're putting these emails together for outreach. I can tell you also that I've had situations where people have reached out to me because, this is a great story, because of the organization, the school that I went to. So I have lived internationally throughout the younger part of my life. And there are folks that are part of that organization. It's St. John's International School in Waterloo, Belgium, where I am still in touch. One of the guests we've had on the podcast, Rebecca Sanabria, and I actually rode the same bus in 4th grade. That's how I know her. She does a fantastic job with as a professional photographer. She has a very accomplished career. And so we have her on to talk about photography and headshots and things like that. But my bottom line is this. Those are people I've connected to that I feel I have a common kind of understanding with, common experiences to connect with. Having people reach out and say, did you go to St. John's International School is kind of fun for me. So I love trying to figure out, like, where were you in what class and what teacher did you have? And, occasionally somebody will post a bunch of pictures of terms of people that are in those classes. Obviously, that's not going to happen with students who are there now, but I would love to hear from students who are there now that can tell me about what it's like to go to school there now. So keep that in mind as you're connecting with people, that's part of the interest you bring. And on the flip side, if you're in STEM, the experiences that you've had most recently in higher ed are probably much more technologically advanced than any organization you're joining. And they would love to hear from what you're doing in terms of coursework, lab work, whatever that may be. They can't wait to talk to you about this stuff. All of these things are ideas that might be able to deploy in their organization. And so having you reach out to them is something that is 100% a two-way street. You're helping them and they're helping you. So the next template, we're going to call this kind of the Ben Franklin effect. So the Ben Franklin effect is essentially asking for a favor that can make the other person like you more. So I think asking people for help is usually something that people respond to pretty easily. It may be something that if you're asking for help in a group, not everybody is going to lunge at the opportunity to help you because, for better or worse, people tend to think somebody else is going to help you and they don't have to. But if you're asking them one-to-one, can you help me with a favor? Can you help me out? Usually that's something people will respond to because they don't know that you're reaching out to anybody else. So they want to make sure you get the help you need. The situation when we're doing this is really sometimes referred to as the fan. So you're reaching out to say, Kevin, looks like you have, progressed through your career, starting in accounting. You've done several pivots along the way. You're now a certified professional coach. I would love to understand how you navigated those pivots and how you were able to figure out what was next. Nobody else is answering that question. Nobody else is Kevin. Might be different experiences other people have had, and certainly you are entitled to reach out to other people who've had different experiences. But this is also something that only I can answer, so I should answer it. We're doing this without coming across essentially as a stalker, I should add. So this should not include, Kevin, looks like you've done several pivots and you have been successful throughout your career. You're managing Talent Connect at this point, and you also live on whatever street, and this is your house number. I love the fact that you just planted new daffodils. Okay, that's too much. We don't want to go that far. We just want to maintain the what is out there, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe it's on Facebook if there's articles posted, things like that. Maybe it's on Reddit, who knows? But the bottom line is, if you feel like the information you have is not easily attainable, you might be a stalker, and stop and just clean that up and make it a little bit less interestingly researched, which will be my new word, my new phrase, which, that's something to keep in mind. So don't go too far in terms of where the person lives, the color of their house, and the last time that they bought gas. We want to make sure in that light of the stalker component, we want to make sure that the compliments and the professional commentary are specific to their work, not necessarily their personal life. The caveat to that would be, I would include schooling as professional, not personal. So that's certainly something you can talk to. So how do we test this out? How do we test out this template 2, where you can essentially reach out to a subject matter expert and ask for a favor? Have you ever read an article where you thought to yourself, wow, this is such a great idea. I love what this person's doing. Whether it's a recipe that they've made, or whether it's a something they made with their hands, or gardening, or a nonprofit that they're part of, anything like that, right? You read an article about this person, you're like, wow, I would love to be able to talk to them. This is a golden opportunity to hone this type of outreach, and making sure that you're reaching out to them where they understand where you found them, and you're making contact to learn more about that. And so I would love it if you could do that today. Figure out one article, maybe it's something you read in the last couple of days, reach out to the person, see if you can get a hold of them. Maybe you comment to get a hold of them. Maybe you message them directly, whatever it may be, but reach out to them and see if they respond, but be specific in terms of what you're looking for. That's a great way to develop the skill when you're doing it for real, looking for connections for your job search. And also, a lot of times doing that may actually lead to job connections. So keep that in mind. Okay, template 3. This is the one most people go to. And this is usually the one people say they're doing and nobody's responding. They're getting ghosted. This, I think, is the component or the template that people tend to think of as the only outreach they should be doing. So this is the direct referral. Okay. This is essentially something where you are asking for a referral into a job or to a job posting. You're asking somebody to send your resume to the right person. A couple things to keep in mind. One, a lot of times the person referring you may get a referral bonus. They actually want to help you. Okay. So if this is someplace where you think there may be a referral bonus, you might want to do a little bit of outreach before you go ahead and completely apply. Because if they're not going to get a referral bonus and they don't know you, there is a chance that they won't help you. The background on this is also reaching out to someone who works there is usually a great way to connect to a hiring manager to have them hand deliver your resume. Caution. We're not only doing this once. So when I talk about the referral process, and I talk about that with folks who are in coaching with me, I like to equate it to when you go onto you go onto Amazon and you're on the little app, you're on your phone, you're scrolling through products, you're looking for something that you may or may not need. And you're trying to figure out what to buy. And so more often than not, at least I don't, you're not going to find the product and click the first one that pops up and say, oh, that's the one I want. You're going to do something as a process. So you're going to find the products that you're interested in. And then the next stage of that is that you're going to look at the reviews, right? You're going to look at how many stars. Maybe you're going to filter your results where you're only going to see things that are 4 stars and above. And then you're going to read some of the comments. And if you're really worried about it and it's kind of sketchy, you may read a lot of comments. Maybe you read the best and the worst. I'm not sure. But for the purposes of this conversation, what you want to do is make sure you have multiple stars when you're going through the direct referral channels. So multiple stars mean your resume arrives from more than one direction. Your resume does not just come from one person. You don't stop at one person referring you. You find 3. And at 3, the hiring manager begins to wonder who you're related to that works in that organization. That's kind of like a ha-ha funny, but also kind of not a ha-ha funny. I personally have been in the situation where applying to a role where I was not getting any attention at all, people were not responding to me. That's right, me, little old me. Changed when I started asking people who they knew that worked in this organization. And by the time I interviewed for the position, the hiring manager said to me, do you have family that works here? Because I received your resume from 5 different people in 5 different departments. Now, 5 was excessive, but I was young and highly energetic. I'm still energetic, not so much young. Here's the thing. 3 is about the right number. So you want to connect to 3 people who can get your resume in front of that hiring manager and tell them that they know you, they have a neighbor who lives near you, whatever it may be. Make sure that you've had that opportunity to connect. And I know you listened to the first part of this podcast, so the person who's referring you also has had a chance to connect with you to understand who you are, not just, I met somebody downstairs at the sandwich truck and they gave me their resume, here you go. That's not going to hold a lot of water. Make sure that is something that you're doing. This lends very nicely into everybody's biggest concern. AI is eating their resume and they're getting ghosted. When you are getting referred directly into the position, chances are you're going around the outside of their applicant tracking system, also known as ATS. This is your cheat code for job seekers. This is why people get noticed who've applied and maybe didn't get a phone call, or they've applied, they don't get a phone call, they never know why, because maybe their resume was never even seen. There are definitely situations from a hiring capacity where people will not quite have the time, frankly, to even review all the resumes coming in. If this position's been open for a couple weeks and you're applying, there's a decent chance they're never going to see your resume unless you're referred. So keep that in mind. Your cheat code is to figure out some of these templates that you can use, maybe try a combination of them, and get your resume or interest to a specific person. Here's the next piece, okay? Those are the 3 templates that we're going to use. Some things to keep in mind. So, do's and don'ts. Make sure you use a clear, specific subject line that references the connection. So if you're reaching out to somebody who you have been introduced to, you have been invited to connect with, they've recommended you, whatever that may be, make sure that's in the subject line so that they know that you're not just coming at them out of the blue. That's really important. And frankly, if we know we only have about 5 seconds for the person to look at your email, that should be the thing that they see right away. Depending on the types of roles you're looking for, I would recommend that you're not sending a whole lot of attachments, right? This is a quick study on here's who I am, here's my background, let's go. If you're in a capacity where, let's say you're more tech friendly in terms of the industry you're applying into, you may not even want to include a resume. You might just want to include a LinkedIn URL, and that way they can see who you are, as long as your LinkedIn's up to date. And as Rebecca would say, your headshots within 2 years. So making sure that those things are accurate is great. Also, make sure you're following up. Just because you sent your resume and you spent 2 hours crafting a cover letter to send to them or an approach note, whatever that may be, does not mean that they're going to see it. And furthermore, if they don't respond, it does not mean that they don't like you, or they don't like your name, they don't like your middle initial, they don't like your phone number, whatever that may be. I know human nature is to go to a place where we go, they don't like me, they're not going to call me back. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's just that they have 7 million emails and they're trying to figure out where to start. So follow up. The deal is, within a week, you should follow up at least once, okay? This goes back to the stalker conversation, not following up every day unless you are consulting. If you're looking at something that's consulting, those positions tend to get filled very, very quickly. You're going to want to follow up with them more often than not. If this is a direct hire, full-time position, your goal would be to follow up about every 3 days, maybe 5, depending on how new the position is. But to be very frank, you should also have a connection that's there that's introducing you at the same time, because remember, we're working on how many stars we have. But again, follow up. So make sure that they're aware of your interest. Don't drive them crazy. Don't stalk them. Don't show up at the grocery store they like to shop at and run into them. However, I do occasionally coach with a role that is really interesting, something that somebody really would like to be able to work in. And especially if it's a situation where you may know of the person previously, letting them know that you may be in the area and available. And if they have 20 minutes for coffee, you'd love to meet them. That will sometimes get some traction because it removes the job decision process from the conversation. Now it's just meeting them for coffee. Okay. So that's a tool you can use, but please don't stalk them. Other pieces that we don't do. Do not ask for the job immediately. If you think about salespeople who probably annoy you the most, there are people who immediately ask for the sale and they don't ever spend any time understanding what is going on with their target. So take that into your memory and think about the fact that you need to connect with this person before you say, I need a job. Also, I need a job is something that makes people shrivel up into a very small ball and go underneath their desk. Don't say that. What you're doing is essentially networking, and you're kind of playing hard to get a little bit in terms of, hey, this is my background. This is what I'm doing. I was recently impacted by a reorganization, or I'm getting ready to complete my degree. And really, I'm just trying to get an understanding of the types of roles that are currently being hired for. I'm not sure if there's a position in your organization or not, but I noticed your background similar to mine, and I wanted to reach out to you and see if you had any advice. That's an easy back and forth. They're going to take a call. They'll have a chat with you, but you're not saying, by the way, at the end of our conversation, I'm going to want you to tell me if I have a job with you or not, because they will melt down. Okay? Don't do that. Not asking for a job, asking for a conversation, asking for a connection. Always offer an easy out when you're approaching these folks. So it is 100% okay to say, I understand this is a busy time of year and you may not have an opportunity to connect with me in the near future, but I would love to be able to network with you in the future if right now is not great. That just softens it. It gives them the way out the door. We don't really know what's going on with our target at this point. For all we know, they could be leaving the job. Maybe they'll want to talk to you because they're leaving. There's a lot of different dynamics that come into play here. We don't know what everybody else is facing. So giving them that out is fine. And I think it's a matter of helping them to figure out, where do we go next? And if I don't speak to this person, are they going to attack me on LinkedIn and send me 447 LinkedIn mails? So that's the other piece here, right? So that's a couple different things we covered today. Certainly the 3 templates. So the alumni component, subject matter expert, you are essentially coming at them with, you're awesome, and I'd love to hear more about how you were able to get your career to this point. The direct referral, which is somebody that you already know from either a group you volunteer for, maybe it's a company, maybe it's a school, but those are the 3 that we see the most. Just to recap some of that, because I understand that this is a lot to take in. I would also encourage you to put yourself in the position of the person when you're sending a networking or connection request. Think about what their vibe is going to be when they read your email. Is it something that they're going to want to reach out to you with? Certainly when you first read it, who wouldn't want to reach out to you? But then give it a minute and think about, is this somebody, if I write this way, are they going to say like, oh, this feels like a comfortable conversation? If it doesn't feel like a comfortable conversation, change it. I would also share that, reaching out only to HR or to recruitment is probably not an effective strategy for you. Reaching out to people who are actually in the business line that you're interested in is a better place to go, because they're probably going to know about opportunities that will be happening before HR and or recruitment, because they're seeing the challenges or the strategy that's being employed now, and they're going to know what they need in the future. So don't limit it only to folks who would be in the hiring capacity. The other thing to consider is that as you're reaching out, the reason why in most cases people don't respond, and keep this in mind, we've highlighted it a couple times here and there, but I think it bears repeating, is that people feel this immense pressure that if they get to talk to you, they meet you for coffee, whatever it may be, that the end of that conversation is going to be them having to make a decision on how they're going to help you next. Let them get to that point on their own. do not make them think that's part of your process. You're there to learn more. You're not there to ask for a job. If it goes down the road of them asking if you'd like a connection to work there or an introduction, certainly you'd like that. You'd love to learn more. But the more times I see people ask specifically for a job or lead with their hand out, the more that fails. Lead with help. And in a lot of cases, this is not one of the top 3 templates, but in a lot of cases, we'll call this the bonus number 4, is that you're going to see more things while you're networking than somebody who is sitting at a desk or working a full-time job is able to, because you can go to more networking events and you can network more heavily. You may know of things that are interesting to them that they don't know about yet. And so sharing some of that to them makes you valuable because you're keeping them current. And certainly that makes for a very easy transition into spending some more time together to get to know them and the organization. So sharing that you're aware of something that could help them, whether it's an article, a science, a presentation you attended, something that made you think of that organization and that person possibly, is a great way to lead off and not turn this into, when can you hire me? I'll be there now. That very, very rarely works. Also, last piece on this. This does not cover how do you reach out to people when there's a job posting. It does to an extent with the types of templates you can use. But in that situation where there's a job posting that is posted out there that you're interested in, I would tell you that connecting is more important than letting them know that you saw their job posting. That may be a better way to get to them than any other way that you can reach out. And more often than not, if you're a good fit for that role, they'll probably bring it up and ask if you saw it. So those are things to keep in mind. I hope this was helpful. Please go ahead and follow us on Careering with Cameron on all the platforms that we're available on, which is pretty much all of them. Also, make sure to give us 5 stars. Share this with somebody who might be struggling with getting their information out, reaching out and connecting. The steps to start networking and sending emails, sending messages of whatever capacity, whether it's LinkedIn or other places, that can be daunting because we don't want to make a mistake. And so we get kind of trapped in this circle of not wanting to make a mistake, not knowing what to say. And this is ideally helpful. Also, reach out and we'll share some resources with you on how to build these templates and what would look good, give you some examples and things like that. So please reach out, share this with somebody who needs some help, give us 5 stars, and make sure you're following. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Stay in the loop at careeringwithcameron.com/talent connect, or check out our website, www.talent-connect.net.